Well, it seems that President Cyril Ramaphosa is going to be asked by the public protector to testify before her impeachment inquiry. Of course, we know that inquiry is in day 4 now, and this bit of information was made known today by her lawyer, Dali Mpofu. This is despite the president saying yesterday, after a similar call from the UDM, that it was misdirected and he didn't need to be there. Busisiwe Mkhwebane's legal representative informed the Section 194 committee today. Even a former president, who was not named, will be asked to testify. Lindsay Dentlinger has more. Lindsay, this is a very curious state of affairs. Just talk us through, first of all, because we asked you this yesterday, and you told us that Parliament can basically summon anyone to a hearing or an inquiry. But this request is coming now from the public protector via her legal counsel. Just talk us through the legalities of this particular situation we're in.
Well, in this particular situation, Sally, the public protector is well within her rights to ask anybody to come and testify on her behalf. And we heard when the committee adopted their directives or the rules that govern how they operate, that should she have difficulty in doing so, they would assist her through the parliamentary processes to get whoever she wanted to testify to the committee. Today, before he started his cross-examination of former SARS executive Johan van Lockerenberg, Dali Mpofu, her legal representative, put it on the table that he would be writing to President Cyril Ramaphosa within the next day or two to ask him to come and testify. Dali Mpofu is of the view that the president cannot make accusations which he says are contained in legal papers and affidavits in matters leading up to this inquiry, accusing the public protector of perjury, which is a criminal offence, and then not come and answer to those accusations and those allegations. And for that reason, he says he will be writing to the president, and as you mentioned there, a former president whom he did not name, but I suppose it's safe for us to infer that he's referring to former President Jacob Zuma, because that relates to testimony we expect to come later down the line with regard to alleged secret meetings on the SA Reserve Bank report, that they will be asked to come and testify at this inquiry. And Dali Mpofu also telling the committee that if he doesn't have success through that channel, that he will be asking Parliament to kick into their channels and see whether they then would go as far as to summoning somebody. And we know, Sally, that Parliament repeatedly says summoning is never their first course of action. They invite people to come and appear before it. We saw this before the ESCOM inquiry 2 years ago, and only when there are refusals, repeated attempts that fail to get people to testify, do they then seek the help of the National Assembly Speaker by summoning somebody to appear. But I should point out that at least the Freedom Front Plus's Corne Mulder, and we could see some dissent on the faces of some other members of Parliament, saying that Dali Mpofu couldn't just assume that the committee would invoke that power to summon someone if they weren't successful in getting that person to appear, and that would have to be merit-based, whether they would take it that far. But let's just listen to how Dali Mpofu put it to the committee today in terms of what his plan of action is to try to get President Cyril Ramaphosa before this inquiry.
We are going to call the president. We are going to write him a letter today or tomorrow to ask him, in line with the directives, if he's willing to come voluntarily. If not, then we will initiate a process for him to be summoned. And it is not for the reasons of dealing with the issue of suspension and all that per se, but just on the merits, on the fact that he has made certain accusations against the public protector, saying she's guilty of perjury and all sorts of things, which would be impeachable if they are true. But you'll see that when we send the letter. But the point is that actually I had then thought that would probably be as far as we go. But from some of the evidence now, and I suspect that will come from the cross-examination, it looks like we might even have to call other former presidents I don't want to put their names at this stage.
Right, so, and I just want to be clear on this. You'll tell me if I've got it wrong. Dali Mpofu doesn't have any powers to summon the president. It would absolutely be the MPs who may decide, yes, this is a good idea, we need to bring the president in. So he certainly doesn't have those powers. It is within the ambit of this hearing and the members of parliament. Am I right? All right, so we know
So, Sally, these are really uncharted waters, because this is the first time that we have a legal representative speaking on behalf of someone in Parliament, even though the Public Protector says we will get to hear from her. But yes, as a legal representative, he is there in his private capacity. He is not part of that, or doesn't form part of that committee that has the powers to decide who to call, who to ask to summon to that committee. And it would have to be a collective decision from that committee. As you've pointed out, there have already been calls from the UDM 2 days ago. There are calls from the EFF on the periphery to the same effect, but it would have to be a collective decision from the committee whether they decide to support Dali Mpofu in his quest to get that witness that he wants before the committee if he's not successful in achieving that on his own.
All right. It's really interesting, though, to see that the pressure points coming in, pushing to get the president at that inquiry. Let's now deal with Johan van Lochrenberg. Yesterday, and of course this is a man who used to do high-level investigations at SARS to try and get people who wouldn't pay taxes on, the illegal cigarette companies, etc., etc. And he was part of teams that really used to make sure defaulters were brought to book. And this relates to this so-called rogue unit, which we of course know was never rogue. The unit that did exist was tasked quite legally with trying to get tax defaulters to pay up. He has complained that when he appealed to the Public Protector to basically look after his interests because he was getting maligned for something that he wasn't at fault with, that she just ignored him. Am I right that he was cross-examined today by Dali Mpofu? Is that the right terminology?
It is indeed, Sally. So yes, it was his second day in the hot seat, testifying virtually from his lawyer's offices. He will be back, incidentally, again tomorrow because that cross-examination is not yet done, and MPs haven't yet had their turn either to ask him questions. But that cross-examination, Dali Mpofu spending a lot of time questioning Mr. Van Lochrenberg about the way they went about doing their business in those several units that he oversaw within SARS, what kind of surveillance work they did, how, whether they were really operating above board. And there was quite a bit of exchange back and forth because Mr. Van Lochrenberg felt that it was disrespectful for Mr. Mpofu to continue to talk about a rogue unit when we now know that there was no such thing. And Mr. Mpofu said, well, it was a matter of semantics, and he would say a so-called rogue unit, but he wanted to continue using that term. So there was that back and forth for quite a while. But getting to the heart of Mr. Van Lochrenberg's complaint, which was that he was being ignored, we only got a glimpse of a response from the Public Protector's office as to why that was, and Dali Mpofu putting it to Mr. Van Lochrenberg whether he would accept an explanation that investigators in the Public Protector's office had told the Public Protector that they couldn't track Mr. Van Lochrenberg down, and whether he would accept it and whether that was plausible. Mr. Van Lochrenberg said possibly it was a position, but that one that he didn't buy, because he said there were just so many ways in which he could be contacted, not least of all, just 3 weeks prior to that report being released, his lawyer's office had communicated with the Public Protector, so there were ways for that office to contact him. And then the evidence leader, Nazreen Bauer, jumped in there to ask whether that was then going to be the official position that the Public Protector would put in her defense as to why Mr. Van Lochrenberg was excluded from this investigation. Mr. Mpofu a little bit hesitant to say that that was unequivocally going to be the testimony that she would give, but said for now he would allow the committee to accept that that is the position that they are putting forward right now as to why Mr. Van Lochrenberg was never asked to be part of that or that investigation, and why nothing as part of that investigation was put to him for him to reply. Here's that exchange between Dali Mpofu and evidence leader Nazreen Bauer.
If they informed her that they cannot find you, she had to take that at face value.
It's a possibility, certainly.
Thank you. That's all I need. Thank you very much.
Sorry to interrupt him. Can I just understand, are you putting the public protector's version to Mr. Loughlin?
Sorry, I can't hear Chester.
No, sorry.
Just repeat,
She'll speak for
Advocate
herself.
Bauer, so that
Sorry,
the witness can hear.
I just want to be clear so that I understand. Are you putting the version that your evidence will be if either the public protector or another witness takes the stand, that's the version that will be before the committee that you're putting to this witness?
Not quite, because we still have to decide whether there'll even be a need to do that. But I'm happy, for the sake of progress, to say that's our version. Yeah, but I can't attribute it for now to this or that witness. Yeah, but that's our version. Yeah.
It's a really fascinating and unprecedented situation, and very interesting, the pressure points that are emerging and the calls that are emerging, and look forward to hearing what happens tomorrow. Thank you so much for that update. That's Lindsay Dentlinger coming to us live from Cape Town, telling us that we're not at the point, certainly the committee, the impeachment committee, is not at a point of issuing a summons. They're not even inviting the president at the moment. But Dalian Mpofu, of course, who is the legal counsel for the public protector, says that he wants the president to appear.